Hospital personnel, have you ever witnessed a single race couple deliver a mixed race baby, indicating a cheating wife? What went down? I worked at a urologist's office for a couple years in college where the main appointments for the day were men having a vasectomy. Well, one man came in raging furious because his wife was pregnant, yelling that he wanted his money back because the vasectomy didn't work. Though that can happen, the doctor examined him and concluded that the vasectomy did, indeed, work. Poor guy left the office so quickly and without a word. Still, gotta give him props for going with that conclusion first. I know one guy who did have a vasectomy fail, as in, grew back together. A couple years after the operation, he almost got divorced because he accused his wife of cheating before he checked with the doctor and found out his vasectomy had reversed. Not a hospital but close enough. I work for a mortgage company and a prior customer came in to inquire about buying another home. I asked him why and he replied that after his third deployment overseas he came home to discover his wife had given birth to a black baby. They are both white. He said he tried to stay with her and work things out. Fast forward 2 years and he returns from his 5th deployment overseas and she has given birth to another black baby from a man different than the father of the first one. At that time he told her to pound sand and he got the frick out. Not a hospital but close enough. I work for a mortgage company. With how much you have to pay to get a simple stitch, I don't doubt that those two places are close enough. I've already gotten to tell this story once but it's too funny not to tell again. They handed my dad a black baby boy when I was born. I was born the 31st of December during a snowstorm and needless to say there wasn't much of a staff, it being a holiday and terrible weather. I guess things got crazy because after I was born they took me to clean me off and then handed my dad a little black baby. Needless to say he was confused. Luckily, I was the only white little girl born that night so they knew which baby belonged to them and fixed that mix up pretty quickly. Or your Mystique from the X-Men. Either is acceptable. My neighbor lived next to such a couple. It was in the 70s and the wife insisted she had been sunbathing too much when pregnant. It's like when my grandma said that my aunt was mixed because of a blood transfusion she had to have immediately after birth. I knew a guy in the small town I grew up in. He was the token white rapper of our group. Not that that's important, just funny. Well, he was dating a girl for a really long time. She was also white. She got pregnant. Well, the whole time, he had told everyone he was going to be a father, his family, friends, everyone. His family had bought the child clothes and baby beds, and they even had prepared a place at his mom's house to be the baby's nursery. Well, the day came, and the baby popped out. It was black. He claims he took one look at the kid, turned, and walked away, and refused to ever talk to her again. He refused to take her calls, dropped all her stuff off at her house, and basically never saw her again. I can't imagine the embarrassment, the hurt, and how changed your life is after something like that. So not in a hospital, but I work as a biology prof and had intro to bio students do a trace, widow's peak, hitchhiker's thumb, etc. So the girl in my class finds out mom and dad both have 2 recessive traits and she is dominate for those traits. It was the first time mom had told anyone that dad could have possibly not been dad. Daughter was 19 and I did not see how it went down, but real weird for girl to describe how she found out dad was not dad. Took about 300 students for this to be brought to my attention. I don't do this lab anymore. TLDR, outed cheating mom with genetics homework. I've actually heard this assignment is pretty common in grade school as well, and more than a couple of kids have found out that their dad isn't really their biological one, or they were adopted. A Hispanic girl I worked with got knocked up. She told everyone that the dad was one of our white co-workers who was a frick buddy. He had no desire for a kid and publicly pushed for an abortion. Everyone thought he was a douche for not being ready to be a father. Fast forward 9 months and the baby comes out. Surprise, she's black. The white guy was ecstatic. So the girl announced the baby was her ex-husband's and he was thrilled to be a father. They get back together and raise the child. But 6 months later another plot twist occurs. Her and the ex-husband start to fight and separate again. The mother realizes the baby doesn't resemble her ex-husband at all. She thinks it looks like one of our black co-workers. She tells him that he is the father. Him not wanting to be a father demands a paternity test. He's the father. He had cheated on his longtime girlfriend to sleep with this girl and forgot to pull out. TLDR. Girl gets knocked up by white guy. Baby comes out black. Girl goes through 2 more baby daddies. Forgot to pull out Vasectomy. Not exactly what OP was after, but in a similar vein. In a university lecture on basic genetics, to illustrate a point about recessive traits carried in certain chromosomes, the professor asked if any girls in the class were colorblind. One puts her hand up and he addresses her. Now, I can say for a fact that your father is also colorblind. Am I right? Number. The rest of the class got it about half a second before she did. Best story. I was born 27 years ago to a very nice white couple. As the theme of this thread implies, I came out Asian. Looked exactly like a little kung fu master. Right after the delivery they take you out back and clean you up while your mom gets comfy in a regular hospital bed. During this little wait my dad was seething, but he couldn't bring himself to accuse his fiancée of anything after the ordeal she just went through, so he resigned himself to be all smiles in the hospital, avoid signing the birth certificate, and bring it up at home. Well, after waiting for an eternity in the hospital room, they bring me in and the doctor say, "I'm sorry, your son has jaundice," at which point my dad leapt into the air and thanked heaven that I was not Asian. I only had liver failure. My dad wasn't in the room when I was born. Mom is white, dad isn't. The doctor freaked out because he thought something was wrong with me. Turns out I'm just biracial. Jokes on doc. I have a male relative that was cuckolded by his wife, but it wasn't the baby's race that gave it away. To quote the baby's grandfather, the father of the cuckolded male, "Ain't no way he's our family name here. His dong is too big." Outside verification proved grandpa correct. The cuckolded male did end up raising the kid as his own though. That stings on so many different levels. My boyfriend is retired army. He says there is a lot of cheating that goes on at the bases. Anyway, he told me about a friend of his that was expecting a baby and was in the room the whole delivery. When the baby came out, black, the guy jumped on her and started choking her. The docs and nurses had to pull him off. I saw a movie once where a doctor and a nurse pulled some guy off. My mom's best friend, 60 years old, was recently contacted by a man claiming to be her half-brother. Her father had fought in Japan during World War II and apparently had an affair with a Japanese woman and kept it secret even after he died. She was extremely skeptical, but her and her brother decided to meet this guy anyways. All skepticism went down the drain when her brother's Asian doppelganger walked through the door. Sister worked IVF. Woman comes in and gives birth to her Asian baby. She's white. Father's white but stupid. He comes in with his whole family. One white kid, 2 blackish kids. The nurse and my sister are waiting for him to explode or anything, but he just says, "Look at that. This one looks Asian." The mother is looking at the nurses, silently pleading. The man turns to my sister and says, "Isn't life funny? God gave me a whole rainbow." Nurses, doctors, staff are not allowed to say anything. I didn't witness this or anything, but a friend of mine's sister had a baby which turned out to be black. Boyfriend freaked out, called her every name in the book and stormed off. When she finally convinced him to do a DNA test, it turns out it actually was his child. Apparently they have some distant relatives that it has happened to as well. Very awkward, but I'm pretty sure they ended up back together. I feel like this is either a regular occurrence or a very popular urban legend, because my mum told me this exact same story about someone in her neighborhood growing up that this happened to. I have a part of my family that the rest of the family tries to keep away. One cousin in particular really wants to be African American even though my family, including him, are all very much white. He's dating a real sleazeball of a white girl and after a few months she gets pregnant. Fast FWD 9 months later and I receive a phone call from my mom dying with laughter. When my cousin's baby came out it was mixed, implying one thing and one thing only, coming from 2 white parents. Well, my idiotic cousin thinks nothing of it and is to this day 5 years later is raising the kid as his own. It's a joke in the family now that having a mixed baby is a personal achievement of his. He acted black enough to make a mixed baby. Job well done, Derek. Buck Nasty is nominated. for getting his best friend's wife pregnant and then tricking his best friend into raising the little mother. My mom is a nurse in labor and delivery. She had a patient one time say, "If the baby is black, please put it up for adoption and tell the husband who was not in the room that I had a miscarriage." The baby ended up being white. Not sure what the staff would have done otherwise. Am I the only one reading all of these stories and wondering about all the cases where the cheating was intraracial and the dad never found out? A biology teacher at my high school told me that a few years back she had asked students to investigate their grandparents, parents and siblings' blood types to make an assignment on genetics. Let's just say that a few mothers came to complain. At least 2 families split up over the results, and she never asked for that assignment again. There is a family in Kentucky that has a genetic disorder that makes some of them appear blue. One woman was so dark she was almost purple. It used to be incurable, although it did not cause any problems other than blue-colored skin. But it no longer is, so people who have it take medicine and look normal. The family name is Fugate. Anyway, a baby was born in the hospital in Lexington, KY in the 1970s and was dark blue. Freaked everyone in the family and on the hospital staff out, except the grandmother. She just laughed and said, "My mother was a Fugate," as though everyone would understand. I went to school with a kid who was born dark brown to 2 white parents. It's due to a skin pigmentation disorder, but the running joke in his family is that his mother was sleeping around. They all think it's incredibly funny. I'm impressed by their collective sense of humor. My brother-in-law is half white, half black. My sister is white. They have 2 kids. One looks black and one looks white. They are always telling us about the weird looks they get when they go out. When someone does have the balls to ask, they almost never believe them when they tell them that they are both their biological kids. I wish I could find it, but the last time this question was on AskReddit, there was a white couple who already knew the child was going to be black because the woman had been with a black man before they were dating. They were planning on making a big deal about it in front of the hospital staff as a practical joke. I have a cousin who has 2 white kids and 1 black kid. After many consultations and tests, the root cause of this condition was determined to be repeated exposure to black penis. Just wanted to add, her parents were right by my uniforms at the white sales is kind of racist. It looked like English. It sounds like English. But I have no freaking idea what the heck you are trying to say. Hey, I wasn't there at birth because I am about the same age as the kids. But there were twins at the high school I went to that were gingers and their parents are both black. Turns out they both carry the recessive genes or something. The family picture is kinda funny because at first you see a jacked black man and pretty fit black woman, and in front of them, 2 small ginger kids. A little off topic, but this reminds me of a small girl I recently saw, probably about 4, who was black but had the most gorgeous red curly hair. I'm talking like Christina Hendricks red. Even her eyelashes were that bright red. She was incredible. Her parents were an average looking black couple. I couldn't stop staring at how beautiful she was. I hope she grows up to be a model. I'm creepy. My buddy was in the military and his wife delivered their first child. The doctor ran a test on the baby to determine the baby's blood type. The baby's blood type came back, and my friend double checked his dog tags. He asked the doctor if it was possible that the child was his based on his blood type. Doctor said number. He starts to fume. Wife gets upset. Doctor says, hold on, and retests my buddy's blood type. It was wrong on his dog tags. Doc says that error is extremely common. Good thing he never needed a transfusion. This will probably get buried, but it's a pretty funny story. So, when I was in the 6th grade, my cousin was dating this guy we'll call Derp for the sake of this story. Anyway, my cousin and Derp got engaged and my cousin was pregnant with his child. My cousin and Derp are both white. Anyway, fast forward 9 months and they are having a get together for the family to meet the new baby. I walk in and spot this dark skinned little baby. Not just a little dark, mind you. This baby is black as in not white. I'm kinda confused because everybody seems to not give a frick about this. Mind you, I had zero racist thoughts as a black baby is just as good as a white baby in my book. I just thought it was weird that no one was acting awkward towards my cousin for her obvious infidelity. So, I go whisper in my mom's ear, "Mom, why is that baby black? Did my cousin cheat on Derp?" That's when I got the bombshell. Derp was black, except he was albino. I had never even considered such a thing. So, it was his child after all. My family still laughs about this story sometimes. TL. Doctor, my cousin gave birth to a black baby. I thought she cheated on her fiance. Turns out he was an albino black man. Not my story, but heard from a friend. Her friend was born white and both of her parents are black. Father stormed off and left, accusing the mother of cheating. Never returned back. She was an albino colon. Hospital personnel here, but not a mixed race baby story. I was working in the ER one day and we had this guy come in via ambulance with his girlfriend and her family. Checked them in, thought nothing of it. 20 minutes later, his wife and her family come in. First words when I hear that his wife wants to see him. Oh boy, the waiting room actually became akin to a war zone. We had our entire security staff in there to keep them apart after the first couple of fights broke out, and then the guy says that he wanted his girlfriend with him and no one else. Needless to say, it was an entertaining day. I always thought that a great plot twist for King of the Hill would be that Joseph turns out to really be Dale's son. Maybe Dale's great-great-grandfather was American Indian? Just a thought. My teacher read this over my shoulder and said, "Oh, of course they blame the wife. Why couldn't it have been the husband?" She was dead serious. Most babies are red when they first come out. They don't really darken up until a day or two after if they are mixed white and black. My sister has a mixed daughter. We knew she was mixed, nothing surprising, but she was just red until she actually brought her home 2 days later. All babies are gingers before they receive their soul. I have a friend who is black, but both of his parents are white. I always assumed he was adopted, but the story is much better than that. Turns out they are his natural parents, and no cheating happened. When he was born, his mom was as surprised as his dad was furious. He walked out in rage, but his mom insisted on a paternity test to prove that she had been faithful. Turns out he had a black ancestor on his mother's side, but she didn't know about it until she did some research. The black gene just decided to express itself. And he doesn't look white with dark skin. He looks really black, natural fro, etc. Any geneticists out there care to elaborate on how this could happen? Throw away for this one. Not exactly on topic, but related. So recently single me goes to visit a good friend and his wife for a weekend of boozing and hanging out on the water and at the beach to get over the sadness of my being recently singled. Being the best of hosts, it turns out this involved a little three-way fun with his very willing wife. So we carried on through the weekend, enjoying all manner of pleasures. Kept it wrapped up the whole time. I then get a message a week later from him indicating that they're expecting. Even though we played it safe, it was a tense 9 months to make sure the baby did not resemble me in any way. Fortunately for us all, it didn't. It baffles me that these women didn't think to use protection when cheating, especially when it's with a man of a different color. No one will be able to tell seriously. WTF. It's not like cheating starts with a habit of good decision making. But yeah, some people. Baffling. Another jaundice baby here, though my mom is black and my dad is Norwegian. Apparently the hospital staff didn't know what to make of me since my eyes were slanted, my skin had a yellowish tone, and my hair was extremely straight. The nurses had to keep checking our bracelets to make sure I was with the right mother. Not exactly what you are looking for, but here's my story. My husband is Caucasian with Mexican heritage. Reed looks Mexican. I'm Native American, but I look white. When my child was born, Hubs was on deployment with the Navy and so I was there with our roommate Poppy. All of the nurses thought Poppy and I were an item, no matter how much we told them we weren't. Anyway, baby was born via C-section. Poppy took the little pumpkin with the nurses into the nursery. I get all fixed up, Wait forever and finally they agree to bring my baby to me. My recovery nurse heads to the nursery, comes back and checks my bracelet. Now my last name is a hyphenation of two very common names, like Smith Lopez. My little one's last name is my husband's only, Lopez. In this example, my recovery nurse walks back out and comes back again, this time pushing a bassinet. She checks the baby's anklet, checks my bracelet, and walks out. Poppy comes over, lifts out the baby, hands it to me and sits on the edge of the bed. As she is sitting down she said, "Wow, I don't remember the little one being so dark." I laughed. "That's because this little one isn't mine." Poppy looked at me like I was a psycho. "Bacav, they checked your bracelet and the baby's. It's yours." I looked at the anklet in question and sure enough it says that the correct last name, my first name, even my doctor's name. Then I noticed the circled M on the anklet. "Poppy, when the baby was delivered, what did the doctor say its sex was?" "She said it was a girl." "That's what I thought. This baby isn't mine. It's a boy." I pointed to the anklet and the M, as in male. "They must have labeled it wrong. No way is there another woman with your last name here in the hospital." I proceed to take off the baby's diaper and sure enough, it was definitely a boy. Poppy jumps up and runs out of the door, yelling for a nurse. TLDR. The day my daughter was born, a little boy was born with the same last name, and his mother had my first name. How do I know? Because the nurses confused him with my daughter. The only difference on our children's anklets was the gender. Medical records number and her first name is spelled slightly different than mine. On the plus side, his mom was very nice and we still talk to this day. We even named our children similar names, Aliena and Alan. We had both planned the names months in advance. BTW. I'm the second of 4 kids, and my older sister and I were both natural births. My older sister's birth went just about the way any other natural birth goes, but apparently, when I was ready to come out, I was freaking ready. It was so intense that my mom passed out, but she insisted, for all of us, that our post-birthing care be done in the room and we were never taken away. When my mom woke up, she hobbled to my crib thing and freaked the frick out cause there was this fat, hairy, squinty-eyed little thing. My mom is sort of a Spanish mutt, and my dad is the Irish German sort, so she didn't expect me to be so fat, hairy, and squinty-eyed. She thought that I was somebody's Inuit baby. She picked me up and was ready to tell the next hospital attendant she saw that they gave her the wrong baby, but my father swoops in with the "isn't she beautiful" doting attitude, so my mom buys it, only after checking my hospital wristband when he wasn't looking. TD. LR I was too fat and hairy to buy my mother's child. I didn't see it, but as I was in labor my ex-husband and I watched a group of doctors and nurses race past the nursing station into the delivery room across the way. Then hospital security went racing in, and shortly after the police went in. When my nurse got back my ex-husband asked her what happened. Apparently a married couple, both white, just had a baby who was obviously not white. And even before she managed to expel the afterbirth the husband started beating on the wife and all heck had broken loose. I know a white girl, Irish and Italian mix, who was dating a very dark-skinned black guy. She got pregnant and gave birth to a very light-skinned child. The doctor did tell her that the baby's skin pigment can change as he gets older, so the BF didn't worry too much on it. Months later, the baby was still white and with blue eyes. He did the smart thing and got a paternity test, and it obviously wasn't his. It's not really a mixed race baby, but last September my wife had a kid who really looks half black. Both my wife and I are from the American South and a substantial percentage of people from our area have small amounts of recessive black lineage. Occasionally, a child will exhibit black features even if both parents appear to be very white. At least that's what my college friend Jamal said when he visited for New Year's a few years back. At first, I thought you'd forgotten to sign into your main account. Then I got to the end. My dad is Italian and my mother is Czech and French. They both have very dark hair and tan skin and my sister looks like the epitome of them mixed together. Well, when I was born, there was this flash of complete white skin, white hair, bright blue eyes, and just a complete freaking shock to our entire family. I have every recessive gene possible. Every time we pass a FedEx truck, my sister never fails to point and say, "Look, it's your daddy." Also, when I was in the hospital having a tonsils out, I was placed in the maternity ward due to bed shortage. The next morning I wake up to a nurse handing me a baby. I've had throat surgery and can't speak. The nurse gives me a puzzled look at my negative head shaking and eyes full of fear. Finally a small voice from the other side of the curtain says, "I think she's mine." TLDR, nurse tried to give me a baby that wasn't mine. For the first 5-6 years of my brother's life I thought he was adopted because while we're a black family, he came out with extremely light skin. As he grew older his skin darkened and the only reminder of the previous color of his skin is a birthmark 3-2 inches long and 1-2 inch wide on his face. I wasn't old enough to appreciate it, but I was the mixed race baby. Dad was in the Navy with an on-file blood type as O neg. Mom is O neg and has me, which they typed as A neg. Lots and lots of drama until dad gets retyped and turns out he is also A neg. Turns out my dad and me are a kind of rare A subtype that gets missed on some tests. My long-term GF is black. When we have kids, I'm gonna carry a picture of a white woman in my wallet and say that's their mum, just to frick with people. Looking through this post, I am so sick of terms like African looking and African American. There is nothing African about a black person born and raised in America. You people have no trouble calling Caucasians white. What's the big deal with calling black people black? You can say black. You can say black person. It isn't racist. Freaking honkies. I prefer the term thundercracker, thank you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.